It's wonderful to be back in Soest. Ich liebe Deutschland. With a name like Wilhelm, you're not Irish, right? I love Germany. Is my mic on? Okay, good. So I want to talk to you today about predictable irrational decision making. Now, you wonder, well, how does this tie into technology? Well, bad decisions tie into everything. And through anecdotal evidence, as far as ethical problems, bad ethical outcomes, a lot of it has been generated not by nefarious mindset, not by wanting to do something unethical, but by making bad decisions. It affects all areas, and that's what we want to talk about today. The question is, and you might have heard that in economics classes, rationality. Humans make rational decisions. But evidence shows that in many predictable ways, we are irrational. Predictable ways. And there are effects from the way we perceive things, we have errors, and the way we think about things, we have errors. We have two ways of thinking. We have a fast, intuitive, reflexive way of thinking, and then we have a slow, more effortful, more methodical, more reflective way of thinking. And to better illustrate that, I want to engage you in some decisions, all right? So watch these pictures on the screen. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to tell me what you can determine about these women. Ready? Watch the screen. What did you see? You didn't even see that a second, and you determined what? She's angry. You determined an emotional state. Mouth open, maybe yelling at you, maybe snarling, but you determined a lot of very accurate information with your fast, intuitive thinking, very accurately. Watch the screen. What about her? Happy, at peace, at ease with herself. Again, your fast thinking was accurate. It got you probably the right answer. Watch the screen. What did you see there? Exactly. Terror, fear, the hands up to the gesture up to the face. Very dramatic. Again, your fast thinking got you very accurate information. So your perceptions are accurate in a lot of cases. Now I'm going to blow your mind and show you how your perceptions might not be accurate. Let me get to this website where we can run this. Oh, I knew I was going to have a goof here. You had me set up perfect. There it is. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you, are these two tabletops the same size? Yeah. I'm going to prove to you that these two tabletops are exactly the same size. You're watching the animation, moving one tabletop to the other side. It's going to fit perfectly on the other side. Now watch closely as it goes back. Do you see any distortion, any size change in the tabletop? No. When I first saw this demonstrated in a text, I had to take out a ruler and measure it to see that it is exactly the same size. And then the author went on in the next paragraph and said, you probably took out a ruler to check out, and he was right. But let me put it back into its original position. Now, you know cognitively up here that they are the same. Do they look the same? No way. They still look different. So the point being, sometimes our perceptions are even off with our thinking. So sometimes they don't agree. Now let's go a little bit further. I want you to do some math with me. Now we're going to get into some cognitive processes. I want you to do the math. Ready? Watch the screen. What's the answer? Okay, good. You got the right answer very fast. Fast thinking got you the right answer. Watch the screen. What's the answer? Okay, good. You got the right answer. All right, watch the screen. Well, exactly. Dr. Abahamde's taking his calculator. What happened? What happened was your fast thinking gave you intuitive responses because you memorized a lot of mathematical tables in school. But we didn't memorize 17 times 20, what is it, 408? I'm sorry, I gave you he's all disappointed. But the point being, our fast thinking came up short. It stopped. We had to shift into slow thinking. And Eamon immediately went into his more effortful, picked up a smartphone. Some people, when I taught this in class, they take out a piece of paper really quickly. I had one student, believe it or not, he just sat there with 408. And I went, oh my God, I've never seen that before. But it's mostly, but he did it through slow thinking. He just was very good about thinking fast in the slow part of his thinking process. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Let's look at a rational statement. Is this true? All roses are flowers. Some flowers fade quickly. Therefore, some roses fade quickly. Is that a true statement? I see heads bopping like this. Well, you know I'm trying to trick you, right? Okay. But does it sound true? It comes easily to us because we have two true premises. All roses are flowers, sure. Some flowers fade quickly, sure. So we've got two true statements, and we think by an ease of analysis that therefore the conclusion has to be true. Well, it isn't. Why? Well, roses might not be a part of the group of some flowers that fade quickly. So it's a false statement. But our fast thinking got us the wrong answer. Our slow thinking, if we would have gone through it and molded it, and I saw some of you molding it over, you would have come up with no, maybe that isn't true, okay? All right, try this one. A bat and a ball costs a total of $1.10. We could put it into euros. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? What's your answer? Okay, some of you got the right answer. How many of you thought 10 cents right away? Come on, you know. Most people think 10 cents. Why? Because it's a simple math problem. That's a simple math problem. Now I got the right answer. It's 10 cents. No. Dr. Baver Ungen, is that right? He got the right answer because but did you shift into slow thinking? I don't know. Okay. The point being is that you had to go to slow. The fast thinking got you the 10 cents. Immediate response. Oh, it came easily. It's got to be the right answer. Simple math problem. No. If it were 10 cents, what's $1 more than 10 cents? $1.10. If $1.10 plus 10 cents is what? $1.20. Wrong answer. The answer, as Dr. Ungen pointed out, I'm trying to work on these names, he said 5 cents. Correct. What's $1 more than 5 cents? $1.05. $1.05 plus 5 cents is $1.10. Correct answer. Only our slow thinking would have gotten us there. He did slow thinking, he just did it fast. Okay? So these are some of the things I want to talk about. Availability, confirmation bias, framing, loss aversion, over-optimism, overconfidence. I'm going to wrap up with a thing we call, that was coined by another researcher called black swans. Availability is what happened in the bat and the ball example. It came to you quickly, it was available to you as a really quick answer, and so you accepted it as true. Availability, the availability heuristic is thinking that examples that easily come to mind, we get a quick answer, we think, oh, that's representative, or that's the right answer. Okay? These tend to happen when we have things that we have observed ourselves, and also vivid events. They stick in our minds, and when we try and make an association with a particular context, we pull them up because they're available. Let me give you another example. My summer home that I flew here from, I have a home in Alaska. I have a beautiful cabin in the woods, in the forest in Alaska. I love Alaska. I love the wilderness. I love hiking in the forest in Alaska. I do it just about every day. What do you think most people ask me about hiking in the forest in Alaska? Bears. That's the immediate. Why? Because you're more likely to see a moose. Okay, you're more likely to see other types of animals. Bears, occasionally, yeah, but what do? They turn tail and they run away. But why do we think about bears when we think about the wilderness of Alaska? Because it's available to us. Why? Because the very vivid stories of bears killing people and tearing them apart. That sticks in your mind a lot more than getting stung to death by bees. As a matter of fact, in Alaska, you're more likely to be killed by bee stings, because those hornets can be horrible, or getting between a mother moose and her calf. You can get stomped to death by. These things happen, but not that frequently. But because they're so vivid, it pops into our minds. It's a very available response. Here's another example. I did some research. My son-in-law works in Silicon Valley on artificial intelligence. He was even doing some work on the self-driving cars. Venture capital. Okay, we have a good idea in technology. So if we have a good idea in technology, in the cutting edge of what's going on in technology, we can go to one of these German venture capital firms and we can get funding for our startup. Okay? We think, well, you know, maybe we've got these great ideas. And what do they fund? They fund e-commerce, financial technology, health, software analytics, and mobility. But, you know, we're working in the area of Bitcoin. We're working in the area of artificial intelligence. We should be able to get startup money for that, right? Okay. The fact of the matter is that the areas of blockchain and artificial intelligence don't get so much, according to this article and my son-in-law, they don't get funded so much by venture capital firms. Why? We think that, well, the money should be there because it's a great idea. We've got this great project, we've got this great technology idea, we should be able to get venture capital. The venture capital companies want to invest in more stable models. More stable models that will return on investment in a more probable way, okay? The idea of blockchain and artificial intelligence, they're still very exploratory. Now, my son-in-law who works in Silicon Valley said, yeah, he's even talked to venture capital firms because he's actually moving back to Graz and he's going to be doing some work. But he said the venture capital firms in the United States more likely to give some money to the ideas and the startups. But in Germany, much more conservative. Austria, much more conservative. Okay, let's talk about attribute substitution, the halo effect. It's judging a substitute attribute instead of the attribute targeted, judging something else. The euphemism for the halo effect is what is beautiful is good, okay? You'll probably just, as we're discussing these, think of some things that you might have decided based on these ideas. So I use the example of buying a stock. Let's say you're buying a stock, and you're buying a stock in an online dating service, okay? And you met through this online dating service the love of your life. I mean, it's just wonderful. You had a great experience meeting this person, and you said, I'm going to, you met, and everything was fantastic. So it was very successful. Is that the right attribute by which to judge buying a stock? A lot of people will be, because they're involved emotionally with the decision, they will use their emotions to make the decision. Is that a rational approach to buying stock? Well, the point is no. You should be doing your due diligence on the financial aspects of the company. That's the correct attribute to target. Let me give you another example. Picking a politician. Okay. All right. Let me show you a picture here. 4 individuals, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. Which ones do you think would be good politicians? Upper right. What other one? Give me 2. Lower left. Most people pick upper right and lower left, okay? Why? Because they look like politicians. They're clean cut, they're handsome. They're both crooks from the Enron scandal. Andy Fastow in the upper right, the financial director of Enron, big Enron scandal in the United States, biggest fraud in U.S. history. And then the lower left is David Duncan. He was the auditor for Enron who shredded all the documents. Okay, both crooks, but they look good. They look good. They look like they should be politicians. Upper left, anybody know? Sergey Brin. Sergey Brin, Google. Lower right, Saul Khan, the founder of the free education online Khan Academy. Outstanding. I would much rather pick those guys than the other people. But we picked them because they look good. That's the halo effect. How about this guy? Well, we know about this guy, okay? Everything he touches turns to gold. He's like the Midas touch in technology. We lost a great one there. But his background, dropping out of college, starting in a computer outfit in his garage and stuff like that. Okay, not too long ago, there was a very attractive young lady in Silicon Valley, Stanford University, who dropped out of college to start a startup. And because of her charisma, because of the way she presented herself, she was able to garner millions of dollars of investment. Okay, this is Elizabeth Holmes. Okay. Elizabeth Holmes, she held Steve Jobs in the highest regard. She even dressed like Steve Jobs. She dressed black turtleneck, okay? Even the company she even hired the company that Steve Jobs hired for publicity and promotion and advertising to market her product, which was Theranos blood sampling, blood testing company. She modeled herself even in the management of her company like Steve Jobs. Inc. magazine, Forbes magazine, everybody's saying she's the youngest female billionaire in U.S. history, in her 30s, and she's the next Steve Jobs, you can see on this one. Well, the fact of the matter is she was a fraud. The whole technology was just recently, it was investigated over several years, but it was also the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States brought her in to investigate. And they usually in the United States, they're going to do settlements. So she had to divest herself of all of her ownership of Theranos, and she has banned for 10 years for doing any kind of officer, any kind of a leadership role in a formal way in the United States in a public company. Why? Because she looked the role. She played the role. People wanted to believe. I mean, she had really high-level investors, millions of dollars. Now Theranos stock is, pretty much worth zero. Okay? But people wanted to believe. Why do people follow these beliefs? We hate ambiguity. Humans don't like the unknown. We tend to have ways of answering we're uncomfortable with ambiguity. So we've got to figure out different ways of presenting ideas to fill in the blanks. I'm going to show you a picture now. This was taken on September 11th, 2001, United States. It was when the Twin Towers were attacked by the airplanes, terrorist planes flying into the airplanes, the Twin Towers coming down. What's going on in this picture? What do you see? What's going on? What's the story? What's the story with this picture? Huh? They're what? Spending a normal day. I heard they're just chilling, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the normal reaction to this picture. The picture was taken by a German photographer, David Hepker, that worked for Magnum Publication. He didn't even publish the photograph for 2 years because he was worried about the response that he would get. He published it 2 years later in the New York Times. He got the response he expected. Uproar of people writing into the paper. These insensitive young Americans, they don't care about anything. They've already moved on from the horrible disaster that was perpetrated on our wonderful city. They are so insensitive, they're so callous. The fellow on the right in the picture was an artist. He said, I was sitting on a wall. We were talking, my girlfriend and I, we were talking about the horrors that had just happened. And the photographer never came across, he never asked our permission to take the picture. He never would have walked, if he would have just walked across the street and eavesdropped on our conversation, he would have heard that we were engaged in a passionate conversation with 3 total strangers about the horrors that had just happened. We were actually consoling each other. It was a very emotional discussion. But the picture that this painted on a sunny day was just exactly the feeling you got. You filled in a narrative. You filled in what we call a narrative fallacy. You filled in a false narrative. Humans use feasible explanations, narratives, to explain ambiguous situations or unknowns. Often our explanations are the ones that come to mind easily, looking at a picture, sunny day, okay, or through our intuition. It can result in very costly mistakes, narrative fallacies. One narrative fallacy that resulted in very costly mistakes, over 100,000 dead, many more hundreds of thousands wounded, was when our country went to the United Nations. This is Colin Powell, Secretary of State, went to the United Nations in 2003 and said, we have evidence that there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, on a false narrative. There was no evidence. They went in after hundreds of thousands of deaths, hundreds of thousands of more people wounded. The disruption in that part of the world still continues today, based on a false narrative. They never found weapons of mass destruction. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that, even though it's probably ancient history to you now. Very costly mistakes with false narratives. These false narratives are supported by what we call the confirmation bias. We want to believe in what we believe in. It's interpreting new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs, searching for information that still confirms it even more, and ignoring information that disconfirms our beliefs. We've seen this a lot in social media over the last decade. You've heard of, people getting information. They're living in filter bubbles. They're getting information through these filter bubbles. They subscribe to certain kinds of news feeds. Their information is coming with a certain kind of confirmation, certain kind of slant. So we get this social media bias, okay? We get these things called fake news. We're in a silo of mentality. What happens when we're looking at one particular part of this issue, not looking at the other part of the issue, we start polarizing. And the people in their own interests, they have tunnel vision. They're looking at things in a specific way, and that's all they're getting. And it results in tribalism, the separatism. We have it in my country big time. It's in this country. It's in Austria. I would not hesitate to say it's all over the world. And a lot of it, I'm not blaming social media. I'm just saying it's a lot of the ways people get information through silos. There are, a prime example of the confirmation bias, this is like the ultimate example, in my opinion, of the confirmation bias, was after Trump was elected president, and the inauguration of Trump as president. The press secretary, just after the inauguration, came out and said this statement. This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe. And then immediately the media started saying, well, this is a false statement. They started showing pictures like Obama's inauguration in 2009. Saying, no, this is a false statement. What do you mean? How can you say something like that? Well, in a CNN interview shortly after, it was a couple of days, maybe a day after that statement was made, after the uproar about it being false, Kellyanne Conway, the assistant to the president, in the CNN interview said, the Trump White House offered alternative facts on crowd size. So we have facts and we have alternative facts. Guys, that is the height of the confirmation bias. That is the ultimate of the confirmation bias. And unfortunately, we have all too much of that coming out of the current administration in Washington, D.C. If you get this PowerPoint, these are active links. These are websites and downloadable apps to help individuals break out of their filter bubbles. These apps allow you to look at two sides of hot button issues so that you're not always getting one slanted, biased position. So these will, there are more of these coming online. Some of them are newspapers, some of them magazines, some of them are just downloadable apps. But hopefully this will be available to you. The way confirmation bias is promoted is the way we frame things, what kind of a context we give things. It's called framing. You've heard of the term before. I just want to go into it a little bit because it's important to understand the concepts. A frame is a conceptual structure used in thinking. Framing establishes a contextual reality for the hearer. The hearer fills in the blanks and develops a narrative. As we know, sometimes the narratives can be real, sometimes they can be false. Now let me give you an example, very simple example of framing. Which bag of chips would you choose? One on the left or the one on the right? If they were advertised this way. Well, is there any difference? No, but the one on the left sounds healthier, right? So you can say, oh, give me the 25% fat-free. But they're exactly the same. That's a simple example of framing. Let me give you another example. If you had a major surgery coming up, and before the surgeon came to you to talk to you about his diagnosis of your outcomes, would you rather hear this? The odds of survival 1 month after surgery are 70%. Or would you rather hear this? Mortality within 1 month of surgery is 30%. Probably the upper. Is there any difference? No, but his bedside manner would hopefully be sophisticated enough to say, I'm going to talk in positives. I'm going to give him the positive possibilities, the positive outcome possibilities. Again, example of framing. The father of behavioral economics, Daniel Kahneman, these are the topics that he and other researchers have explored. He won the 2000 Nobel Prize in economics. He was a psychology professor, but he won the 2000 Nobel Prize in economics for his research on prospect theory and loss aversion. Okay? People's preferences change with context, depending on whether an option is framed in terms of potential loss or potential gain. I don't have a coin on me, I forgot my prop, but here, see if you'll enter into this bet with me, into this wager. If I flip a coin and it shows tails, you lose $100. However, if it comes up heads, I give you $150. What's the odds? 50%. Is it an even bet? No, because I'm going to give you half again as much as you would lose. Would you take the bet? Anybody? No? Can I pick on you? How much would I have to pay you for you to take the bet? Exactly. That's what the research shows. $200 is from there it goes up. Thank you. She's not a prop. She's not a shill in my audience, but that's what research shows. Human beings hate losing about twice as much as gaining. That is a rational bet. A rational decision maker say, yeah, $150. I mean, yeah, but no, okay, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose. I don't want to risk losing. Let's take it a little bit further. Which do you choose? To get $900 for sure, or a 90% chance to get $1,000? I got a wheel here. We'll spin the wheel. 90% chance to win $1,000, only a 10% chance to win nothing. Or would you want the $900? 900. Most everybody chooses, yeah, I want the $900. I'll forego the 100. All right, now let's flip the coin to losing. If you had to face this, losing $900 for sure, or a 90% chance to lose $1,000. 10% chance of losing nothing. How many would pay me, how many would say, okay, all right, here's the 900. How many would take the spin the wheel? 10%. Most, come on, take it. Most of you would take the chance, right? Okay. You only got a 10% chance. You've only got a 10% chance. And you're going to lose more money. Okay. There's a little rationality problem there. All right. Here's what we are. We are risk averse. This is what Kahneman's research showed. We are risk averse when our choices involve gains. We don't want to risk. We want the sure thing. Okay? But when it comes to losing something that we have, we seek risk when the choice involves losses. We will even risk more to avoid losses. Now let me give you the bias that goes along with this that fits all kinds of businesses. It's called the sunk cost bias. The sunk costs are, as you know, is man hours and money that's put into projects and products in development stages, right? Okay. Sometimes they aren't going to make it. Sometimes they're failures. Rational decision makers would say, if this thing's not going to make it, it's going to be a failure, we're going to write it off. The money and the time, man hours are already invested, it's a write-off. But there are a lot of times when managers, many times, when managers will say, we're going to keep working on it. We've got too much sunk into this project already. So they throw more man hours at it and they take more money at it. Now, that can be very costly financially to a company, no matter what it is. But it can also be very unethical when the outcomes involve consumer safety. And there have been problems, and you've probably heard about them, with regards to pharmaceuticals, automobiles, home appliances that have been rushed to market before they were ready. And that was because of the sunk cost bias. Bad decision making with unethical outcomes. Move the products, move the projects to the market, and then reap some bad effects. Now, framing can also be used in a positive way. We call it nudging. There's another wonderful book, and I'm going to give you the books at the end here, of nudging. In public policy makers can use framing to nudge people in a certain way. In Thailand and in Australia, this is how cigarette packs used to look. Now, in Thailand and in Australia, by law, this is how cigarette packs have to look. They feature these horrible diseases on the cigarette pack. You're not allowed to put your logo on them. You put the horrible diseases on the cigarette packs. I did a lot of research in Thailand, and I mean, it was amazing just walking into the stores and seeing people going in buying these cigarette packs with these horrible images of diseases on them. But public policymakers are trying to nudge people with these types of images away from the hazards of cigarette smoking. I don't know the statistics on whether it works or not, but it's a nudging effect by framing. Social media is very good about using framing. We had presenters the last 2 days talk about social media and the way things are organized. Social media experts, when they're developing their platforms, are very savvy about a choice architecture and about how to appeal to emotional responses, how to get emotional response, algorithms used to give feedback to customers on the different types of products they might be interested in. Sophisticated, very sophisticated, and it's advancing all the time. This is framing. A lot of it is the way things are framed in social media. Now, this was taken advantage of in my country. It was also affected this country. The Internet Research Agency, a very non-threatening name of the St. Petersburg area that was identified for interfering, using Facebook in the 2016 election in the United States to sway the election. They were also involved in the recent election. It was determined they were also involved in the recent election of swaying opinions in the Merkel, in Chancellor Merkel's reelection. Okay, they're involved in other countries. Okay, they know how to use Facebook and frame things in certain ways to manipulate behavioral responses from certain people. A lot of research came out from the investigation, and some of these people were even indicted, but they're in Russia, so I don't think we're ever going to see them come to a U.S. court. Mark Zuckerberg was called in front of the U.S. Congress because Facebook was exploited. It was false websites, false information, and then manipulating private data that was Cambridge Analytica. You might have heard about that scandal. Using private information to approach people to manipulate the elections. He was even called in front of the European Union Parliament just recently, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, to undergo questioning. Okay? Now, he answered questions, but he also framed and kept coming back to his framing of what is Facebook. Facebook is a platform, it's a social media platform to give people the power to build community and to bring the world closer together. That's the way he frames Facebook. But what is Facebook? Sure, it's a social media company. It's also, it's driven by advertising dollars. Okay? It's a news company, it's a communications company, financial services company. Believe me, they're a data gathering, data mining, and data brokerage company. Okay? Is anybody familiar with Firefox? Do you use Firefox in this country? There's an add-on called Lightbeam. Anybody use it? It's a free add-on. Have you seen it? It's a free add-on to track who's tracking you. So you can just go to Firefox Lightbeam and you can download this thing in a couple of minutes, and it's free. It's non-threatening. So anyway, I cleared my tracking and I went to 2 websites just to check this out, getting ready for this presentation. I went to 2 websites: my Indiana State site, the one with the leaf, and then I went to Barclays International, do some research on news. And then I clicked on Lightbeam and I went to this matrix. Shows you a matrix of the URLs that are tracking your every move. Not too many associated with Indiana State, but look how many of these little pyramids. Now you can hover your cursor right over the top of the pyramid and the URL will be identified. It'll pop up. So I just did a little researching. It didn't take long to find Facebook. So Facebook was on, that was just my cursor, and I did a screen capture. Facebook was tracking my every move on Barclays International. I wasn't on Facebook at all. I wasn't anywhere near Facebook. I only had 2 websites open. So they are indeed tracking you. After a couple of days of browsing, your matrix is going to look a little bit more like this. Okay, it's going to be much more complicated. It's amazing how many people are tracking our information. Amazing how much information is being gathered on our every click online. Now, you in Europe are protected a little bit more than we are in the United States because of the general data protection regulations that were just passed, right? Okay, and both of our speakers, I think, today addressed some of the ramifications of that. Wondering if those Zuckerberg was asked in Parliament, when he was in front of Parliament, will you be ready for this? And he said, yes, we should be ready for this. So it's going to be interesting what kinds of changes you see in Facebook as far as agreements to use Facebook to protect your privacy. I don't know, has anybody seen anything yet? Okay. So, I was talking to Dr. Hamid and wondering, are these regulations, if Facebook is going to make all these major changes to protect privacy of individuals in European countries, is that going to across the ocean? We're going to see it in the United States? I wonder. Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit. Anybody in here engaged, to be married? Anybody engaged? Nobody. Okay, we got one taker. Oh, doctor, are you?
Yeah, I'm married.
Oh, you're married. Anybody engaged? Who's the fellow that's engaged? Come on, I'm going to put you on. What's your name? Ibrahim. Let me ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. What are the odds that your marriage is going to end in a divorce? What are the odds that your marriage is going to end in a divorce? Come on, I'm putting you on the spot. Huh? What would your fiance want you to say? Yeah, I hope she's not in the room. Okay, most people, when they're asked this question in research surveys, they answer 0%. There's no chance that my marriage is going to end in divorce. But I heard some statistics thrown out. What are the probabilities in Western cultures that marriages are going to end in divorce? It's around 40 to 50%. My country is 50%. I think some countries over here are 40%. I know in Thailand it's 40%. There's a huge percentage chance that you're going to end in divorce, but most people say there's a 0% chance that they're going to end in divorce. This is optimism, okay? And you better have optimism when you go into a marriage, right? I mean, that's a good thing to have. Optimism is good. It's a human trait that serves us well. If we didn't have optimism, we wouldn't try new things. We wouldn't explore. We wouldn't be entrepreneurs. We would not be inventors. Optimism is good. But it can get problematic when we have over-optimism. We have a belief in false outcomes. And combined with a belief that our capabilities are more than they really are, these can be really disastrous. Over-optimism and overconfidence. It happens a lot. Further up the scale, research has shown, further up the scale you go in an organization, these things start to take over. Over-optimism and overconfidence. Belief in yourself, overconfidence, belief in the outcomes of a decision. Okay, an example, the housing market in the United States. This also permeated in some of the European countries. How could it be that people in the United States in the mid-2000s, leading up to the mid-2000s, would go into such immense debt to buy homes that they could not really afford? Market prices are going up all the time. They're told by nefarious lenders and mortgage brokers, don't worry, you can refinance. And some people were even buying extra homes. Anybody ever see the movie The Big Short? Oh, educate yourself. It's really digestible, but it talks about this. It talks about the psychology of how people are irrationally buying homes and going into debt. Things go up, might come down. The market turned. The market turned, the housing prices started going down, these mortgage loans ballooned, the payments were due, bankruptcy, defaults all over the place. We went into the Great Recession in the mid-2000s. It was a worldwide effect because of over-optimism and overconfidence. Another one that we are experiencing greatly in my country, we don't know where it's going to go. You have, the countries in Europe support higher education more. I was talking to a couple of students yesterday about higher education support. You have more support here, but the students in my country are taking on immense loads of debt to get undergraduate degrees, postgraduate degrees, huge loads of debt. What happens if they just start default? Scary, okay? Another one that is affecting, from this administration in my country, there were a lot of banking regulations that were put into place after the Great Recession to protect individuals from bad lending practice, from fraudulent lending practices. Okay? We have a president now that is rolling back a lot of those regulations. He's letting banks have a free rein again. Okay? That to me is overconfidence. AI. My son-in-law works in AI in Silicon Valley. We talked about the quantification bias. There are several biases related to this belief, this myth that big data and sophisticated algorithms can bring human beings closer to ultimate truths than due diligence in scientific analysis and investigation. So you probably, in your courses and in readings, you've probably heard some possibilities with AI, where it could go wrong, and I'll point out one in a minute. Overconfidence. I have a lot of hope for what might happen on June 12th, if it's still on. I don't know, is it still on? Okay, they put it off, they put it on. But to me, I'm sorry, this is the epitome of overconfidence, and it far exceeds their intellectual abilities. That is my bias, I admit it, but it is based on a lot of fact. These things lead to things we call black swans. Swans are white. Swans aren't supposed to be black. Well, the fact of the matter is, this is a metaphor for things that are highly improbable events that have three principal characteristics. They're unpredictable, they have a big impact, and after the fact, we seem to say, well, you know, now we can see why this thing happened. Okay, we didn't see it coming, bam. Okay, the election of Trump in my country was an example of a black swan. Okay, this also happened with Uber. My winter home is in Arizona, and Uber self-driving cars are based on deep neural networks. I don't know if you get into that kind of stuff here, but it's very sophisticated AI, artificial intelligence decision making. It hit a woman on a clear night in Tempe, Arizona, and killed her. There was a safety driver behind the wheel. But he was not looking at the street. He was looking at something in his lap. You can go on YouTube and find the videos where this accident occurred. Hit this woman, killed her. Okay, major problem, major black swan, because AI that is guiding these autonomous cars, it's not supposed to happen. They're supposed to be better than human drivers. Well, my son-in-law and I read some articles, tech articles, that were saying some of these DNA, some of these deep neural networks, sometimes engineers don't even understand how they make decisions, okay? Because some of them are actually, they're doing deep machine learning, right? So they're actually accumulating knowledge as they process information. And that's what a lot of these self-driving cars are doing. They're putting more miles on these cars so they can gather more information all the time. The software has the ability to ignore false positives. The Uber executives in the investigation believe that the company's system decided that the pedestrian was a false positive, or not a threat. What a false positive is like a plastic bag blowing across the front of the car. Okay? So how did it make that decision? They don't know. They're back to the drawing board. Everything in Arizona has been shuttered. Still, there's a lot of money going into, by big companies, not by venture capitalists so much, a little bit, but a lot of money going in from big companies into autonomous driving cars. Waymo and GM, Mercedes, Audi, they're all looking into it. So it's going to come. But the quality of the decision making is suspect after this incident in Arizona. Other black swans. Well, you probably read a lot of fictional stories and other things about artificial intelligence. Are there possible black swans with artificial intelligence? How much do we depend? How much do we allow? I'm not saying it isn't important. It is. It's going to simplify and improve our life. But what are the limits? There's a lot of questions about the limits of artificial intelligence. Dr. Abahumde talked about Bitcoin. Is your money safe? Is your money safe in Bitcoin? Let me ask, is the blockchain unhackable? We don't know. We don't know. But there could be massive losses that we don't even expect. The Russians are pretty good at nefarious activities, right? Any Russians in here? No offense, they're very sophisticated. Online gaming is the online gaming is a multi-billion-dollar recreational thing throughout the developed and developing countries. The World Health Organization has just, I think a week or so ago, identified online gaming addiction as a major health risk, a major behavioral health risk to countries that have this kind of infrastructure. I think one of our presenters showed South Korea today. I know that online gaming addiction is big in South Korea. It's big in my country, and it affects a lot of college students where they're going into their dorms, engaging in online games, these role-playing games. I think Dr. Zaccaro talked about it yesterday. We need to think about the vulnerable people. Yeah, you play online games, that's fine. What's wrong with an online game? But what about the people that have a tendency towards addictive behavior? Do we have a problem? Do we have a responsibility? So, but like I say, World Health Organization just labeled it as a major problem. All right, now okay, I'm going to talk to you. Go ahead, give me it back. Okay, I'm going to show you. No. Okay, this is what could happen with big data. This is what could happen with big data, with SAP and all of the capabilities of tying big data together, all the information that they gather on us.
Pizza Palace, guaranteed hot in 30 minutes or it's free. This is Mary. May I take your order?
Hi, Mary. Yes, I'd like to order.
Is this Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you for calling again, sir. I show your national identification number is 610-204-999-8-45-54610. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I see you live at 736 Montrose Court, but you're calling from your cell phone. Are you at home?
I'm just leaving work, but I'm...
Oh, we can deliver to Bob's Auto Supply. That's at 175 Lincoln Avenue, yes?
No, I'm on my way home. How do you know all this stuff?
We just got wired into the system, sir.
Oh, well, I'd like to order a couple of your double meat special pizzas.
Sure thing. There'll be a new $20 charge for those, sir.
What do you mean?
Sir, the system shows me that your medical records indicate that you have high blood pressure and extremely high cholesterol. Luckily, we have a new agreement with your national health care provider that allows us to sell you double meat pies as long as you agree to waive all future claims of liability.
What?
Do you agree, sir? You can sign the form when we deliver, but there is a charge for processing. The total is $67 even.
$67?
Well, that includes the delivery surcharge of $15 to cover the added risk to our driver of traveling through an orange zone.
I live in an orange zone?
Now you do. Looks like there was another robbery on Montrose yesterday. You could save $48 if you ordered our special Sprout Submarine Combo and picked it up yourself. Comes with tofu sticks. Those are very tasty, sir. Good value, too.
But I want double meat.
Well, I'm sure you can afford the $67 then. You just bought those tickets to Hawaii. They weren't cheap, eh? Oh, but I see you checked out the budget beach bum at the library last week. Up to you, sir.
All right. I'll get the Sprout subs.
Good choice, sir. Gotta watch that waist if you're hitting the beach, eh? 42 inches. Wow. Man, I'd say tofu and sprouts is like required.
That's how much?
Just between you and me, there's a $3 off coupon in this month's Total Men's Fitness magazine. Your wife Betty subscribes to that, right? Anyhow, clip that and it's $19.99 even. Whoa, looks like you maxed out on all your credit cards. Bring cash, okay?
Want to stop this from happening?
Got me? Am I back? Let me get back over here. Going into, here we go. Okay, so that's a tongue-in-cheek look at what could happen when they get all of our information and they put us all into the network. It's a fun little video. I wanted to kind of wrap up on that, but it kind of points to some possibilities. Before I close, I want to just call your attention to some reading. If you're interested in behavioral economics, there are several books here that are very, very good. Some of them are a little bit longer than others, but they're really quality books. You can, if the PowerPoint is made available or the slide, we can make that available to you, that you can order a book or an online book. If nothing else, the one that changed my life, this is written by Daniel Kahneman. He's the 2000 Nobel laureate that I had mentioned earlier for his Nobel Prize in Economics. And this is called Thinking Fast and Slow. A lot of the topics that I talked to you about are based on his book. It's a long read, but it is incredibly good. It's very digestible, even though he is an advanced thinker. It's not written in academic parlance. It's written that everybody can understand. It changed my life. My daughter works in Silicon Valley. She read it. She said, "Dad, I can't even think about thinking anymore unless I think about this. It will make you aware about how you think." So like I started off with, I talked to you about outcomes. That outcomes can be sometimes unethical based on bad decision making. And I want to call your attention to this. You're in a field that is advancing all the time. Technology is opening up possibilities for wonderful things all the time, but it's also opening up possibilities for ethical problems, and several of our speakers have talked about that. So please keep that in mind as your careers go on. And what I'll close with is this. If the decision is important, please think slow. Thank you.